So, there was this researcher studying fish who live in the coral reef. They thought they had the perfect job. They get to swim with these majestic fish every day, get up close and personal with a natural wonder of the world, and help animal conservation efforts by tracking how fish populations move. And, based on their counts, they calculated there were around 200 fish living in that reef. But it turned out that there was this one fish that kind of ruined all of it. While the researcher was trapping the fish in order to get a reliable estimate of how many of them lived in the reef, a fish who we'll call Philip just kept getting caught time and time again and totally biased the fish count. There weren't 200 fish in that reef, there were 100. And Philip. Maybe Philip loved this researcher, or maybe they had beef. We'll never know, because this particular story is made up. But it's based on a real problem in animal research. Scientists have noticed that some animals get caught again and again, while others in the same species never do. So in this video, we're going to try to get to the bottom of what makes some animals so dang trap happy. So Philip may be a red herring, but fish like him really are a big problem in these population survey studies. In one study, there were 11 fish that accounted for more than half of the catches, and one of those was nabbed 9 times. I guess that fish was hooked on the experience. But they really do cause problems for the researchers because they're out there trying to estimate population size so we know when a species needs protection. It's no small issue. Trap happiness has been reported in all sorts of animals, from lamprey to badgers. And since they've been returning to the lab with reports of trap-happy animals for years, naturally, researchers have come up with a lot of potential motives to explain why certain animals are so into getting caught. Specifically, they've suggested that being drawn to traps may be as simple as a personality type. They suggested that fish like Philip might be bold, risk-taking adrenaline junkies or super active explorer types, but not everyone agrees. The studies that suggest trap happiness is a personality type often only looked at a single species in a limited location and period of time. When researchers compared multiple species across different environments and on a longer timescale, they found that trap happiness wasn't as universal as some reports might suggest. A publication from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Conservation Biology at the University of Maine detailed the behavior of a variety of different small mammals, from shrews to squirrels. They looked at stuff like if they were more active than others or explored new territory more often than their neighbors, and when they saw certain behaviors being repeated reliably in the same individual over time, they considered that behavior a personality trait. Like deer mice who jumped around a lot and traveled through the middle of an empty space would still do that stuff a month later, and the ones that spent more time in one place grooming themselves kept doing that in the follow-up observations too, meaning that activity and exploration counted as personality traits. So the researchers said these animals had strong evidence of personality, but just because animals can have some personality traits doesn't mean that being trap happy is one of them. For instance, while they did note that certain red squirrels were big explorers, those adventurous guys weren't necessarily caught more often than the ones that spent less time investigating stuff in their environment. And animals that were trap happy in one week weren't consistently trap happy throughout the seasons. It could be that active squirrels aren't drawn to traps in early spring because they're more focused on mating and raising babies than in hanging out in traps. But then, later in the year, they go all in on tasty bait. So they may like getting trapped at times, but not consistently enough for it to be a personality trait. This is a big shift in how researchers have historically thought of trap happiness, but it comes from a more robust data set than the studies that came before it. Now, since it sounds like the reason that only some animals are trap happy isn't a personality trait, we still need to figure out what's going on to make some animals go for the same trap over and over again. When studying red-backed voles, researchers have found that an individual's size and sex are both factors that correlate to how likely they are to be repeat trap customers. Size and sex matter for snakes too, but so does age. That's also muddled up with the fact that size can change throughout the seasons or even in an animal's life. And then for some species like badgers, their trappability doesn't correlate to any of these things, so it's really a big mess that researchers are still trying to disentangle.
Hello there. This SciShow video is supported by Brilliant, the interactive online learning platform with thousands of lessons in science, computer science, and math. And not just foundational concepts from the likes of Darwin and Lovelace. Today, there's so much more to learn about in the modern world. So Brilliant courses on topics like artificial intelligence are made with the help of professionals at Microsoft and Google. Brilliant can help you harness today's more advanced tools like large language models. You'll train the models on real data and generate different kinds of end products, like a cookbook based on Taylor Swift's latest album. And you'll even get to compare the final products from a model trained on Taylor Swift versus one trained on a cookbook. And while you're playing with those variables, you'll build an understanding of large language models from the ground up. Since you learn this stuff through hands-on problem solving, you're more likely to actually remember it. So to get started, head to brilliant.org/scishow or to the link in the description down below. And that link will also give you 20% off an annual premium Brilliant subscription, and you'll get your first 30 days for free. And now, back to the show.
So, if trap happiness isn't about the animals themselves, it could have more to do with the trap being used. An investigation of sea lamprey compared two kinds of traps. One was a commonly used funnel trap that consists of a cage with funnel-shaped entrances on each of its sides and metal curtains that keep the lamprey from leaving. The other trap was a ramp with pegs on it leading up to a collection basket. Turns out that the funnel traps didn't nab any super trap-happy animals, but the ramp traps had a high recapture rate, meaning there was a consistently higher rate of lamprey being return customers to the ramp traps, and in some cases, they even outnumbered first-time visitors. So you can give the same animals two different trap options and see totally different rates of behavior. But that study didn't compare multiple species directly. So to get to the bottom of a potential species explanation for trap happiness, there was a study that compared two snake species in the same area, the black swamp snake versus the banded water snake. And instead of comparing them on how often they entered the traps, they counted how many times these snakes escaped from traps. The reasoning was that by only counting the animals that are still in the traps when you get there, you're missing out on the animals that come and go more or less as they please. They also claimed that the patterns in escaped animals should be similar to the patterns of overall capture. So if an animal is truly trap happy, it should escape less. And they found that the escape rate was way higher for black swamp snakes than for banded water snakes. Within 24 hours, 61% of the black swamp snakes escaped, compared to a measly 21% of the banded water snakes. This may be because of an interplay between trap type and how each species looks for food. See, the trap used in this experiment was submerged underwater. And while black swamp snakes forage for their food underwater, banded water snakes generally look on the surface, meaning they may just have found the traps less often. So whether any single finding says anything about other species, like Philip the fish, still needs to be tested. Most of these studies describe specific observations in certain animals. So instead of generalizing that out to all animals, we need to reel it in, pun intended. Which brings us back to the question that started this video. Why does any animal do this? Maybe they're trap happy just because they've gotten used to being caught and think it's no big deal. After all, they might have an easier time finding food when it's also trapped in there with them. Or maybe they're just learning that there's really no downside to hanging out in a cage for a while, since they're probably not going to end up on the dinner table for some other animal. It's hard to know for sure, since these trap-loving animals can't just tell us what's going on in their heads.